There's the famous setup photo, a Photoshop from back in 1963 before they had Photoshop of Lee-Harvey-Oswald. As a photographer, what is wrong with that photograph?
Well, you know, there are a lot of things wrong with it. The most obvious thing for me is that the light is coming from his left from an angle and at a pretty low angle in the sky, because you can see the shadow coming back from his body at about 10 o'clock. So that would indicate a light source that's off his axis at about 5 o'clock. So that's inconsistent then with the lighting that's on his face. The lighting that's on his face, if you'll notice, the shadow goes straight down from his nose.
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock overhead. His eyes, both eye sockets are dark, which indicates also an overhead light source. So it's clearly a photograph that was staged. The interesting thing about that is the entire house was cleaned out the day of the assassination by the Dallas Police Department completely. Every single thing, every dish, every fork, every knife, every sheet, everything. And then 2 days later, suddenly someone goes back to the house and supposedly finds the photo in the house and brings it in. So it's clearly a fake photo. And the thing about it is, back then, yeah, they didn't have Photoshop, but what they could do is work at an incredibly large scale. So they could have made a 20 by 24 print of the person standing in for the image, made a big giant print of a headshot from Oswald that they had, combined them, and then rephotograph it. And the print that they found was 3 inches by 3 inches. So very difficult.
All right, we don't have much time. I want to have you back sometime. No. I could have you for 5 hours. Shifting gears again, I don't want to get to, I believe we do have a space program that went to the moon. I've talked to top astronauts, but they wanted to fake some photos for the public to not show the public what we really have. What do you think of those moon photos?
Well, I think the most interesting thing about the moon photos is that there are some problems with them. There's some definite problems with them. You know, I've actually photographed Conrad Grissom and Harrison Schmitt. Harrison Schmitt was the last person that set foot on the moon. Conrad, obviously.
We've interviewed him,
yeah, exactly. Schmidt's amazing, geologist. You know, and the thing about it is that the lighting is really inconsistent in those photographs based on, you know, the light source on the moon would be one singular source. It would be the sun only. So either you got light on you or you don't. So the shadows are all pure black and the highlights are all pure white because they're illuminated. So the problem with, you know, the photograph of Aldrin coming down off the lem, you know, that entire it's backlit, and so the lem should be black. It shouldn't be illuminated, but it's illuminated.
But instead, there's angles everywhere of light.
Yeah, there's multiple shadows. There's directional shadows. There was a great photograph that NASA had or a film image that they had released, which they've since pulled. You know, I think it got in under the radar, and some people got it and they questioned it, and it got pulled, of the flag on the moon blowing. With the wind on. You've seen that. Okay.
So as a top photographer who knows the whole science of it, this is suspicious.
It's suspicious. And, you know, I've looked in that. I watched the documentary, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, which there's a lot more stuff on there that's really inconsistent. And it was almost part of the same interest I had with the 9/11 stuff with the Pentagon. You know, something seemed weird.
And we have a right to question it.
You look at?
Unfortunately, we're down to a minute and a half. Let's show the photo of his father here. And I described what I got from it, you know, it's... You know, it's almost like the Sistine Chapel where God's reaching down, but also he's old, he's wise, he's strong, but you said vulnerable.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of vulnerability in that image, you know, especially in his eyes. You know, it looks like, to me, you know, that was a perfect photograph. That's my favorite that I've ever done. There are some of my son, actually, that would compete with that one for favorite photo. But, you know, he and I took a walk. I usually always have a camera with me. We took a walk out in his house in the high desert in California, and the light was absolutely stunning. There was a little breeze. It was one of those things where it's like, hey, can I do a portrait of you real quick, Dad? Yeah, you know, shot 10 frames, done, finished the walk, processed the film. Stunning, you know.
You caught that magic moment.
Perfect. I mean, the hair blowing. For me, it was really the magic moment.
DanWintersPhoto.com, DanWintersPhoto.com. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com. See you back this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. We have 2 new trailers for 2 new films up at Infowars.com. Great job, crew. God bless you all. Dan Winters, thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Great seeing you again.